I am recording this session right here, and so that primarily, we can focus on kind of like a discussion, right? I mean, some of the new methods digitally now. I've seen, a few of you guys, that already start working on your envelope. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Working on your envelope, right, and working with the grid in order to develop this type of model, right? And again, I talk about this is your envelope with the grid on it, right? So it's this guy right there with the tri-grid, the one we've been working so far, right? So basically, right, I'd like to show you guys how to generate these sheets right here, which, I have one I can pass them around. Now, in here, right, you're going to see that we have a number of things, right? To begin with, it's two sheets. Maybe I can open the Illustrator file, right? That's the first part, and that's the second one is, and if you, as you can see, right, we have one major part right there, or piece, right? And then two little ones, three little ones, and then this middle one, right? So altogether is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces, right, that make up this object right here, right? So I can zoom that selected piece in all of these viewports right here. Now you're gonna see how I'm using two different colors, right, to kind of separate them, right, kind of work with them, right? So that green right there is one piece, and then we have that little one, that little one, that little one, and then this medium piece is this piece right here, right? Again, there's as always, right? There's many ways of doing one same thing, right? Of getting the same result. However, and again, and that's why I wanted to bring some of these models that are already kind of working, right? I mean, we have Nate also going around, right? His model right there. Particularly, I like this one because this is Diego's, right? Because it's open in this part right here, and we can actually see what he's doing, which is actually the right idea, right? Taking this the same way, right, that you find some of these objects. Let me see, right? Kind of these right here, right? That you have sections where you cut, right, all around it, but there's some sections where you fold, right? In our case, there's actually sections that you fold inwards and outwards. And I had leveled this, right? You see that I have those pink lines. That pink line, and right now it's screwed up. Let me go maybe onto this other file right here. Right, I have those pink lines, and that is under the rich layer. And again, if you think of the word rich, right, you can think of a little house, right? That's the roof that is kind of sloping down, right? That line that you have right there on the top right there, that's the rich, right? That is all the forms that form right there. And then you have the blue lines, right? Let's see, those blue lines right there, I have them under a valley layer, right? That means that rather than kind of folding into an A, right, they're forming onto a V, right, like a valley, right, because there's a direction, right? So we have a ridge right here in the Diego's model right here, right? You have a ridge, and then these guys right there are considered valleys, right, because you're folding outwards. Now, again, just like everything, um, a method, right, requires time. But if you go through the exercise, right, you'll see that once the folding part and the assembling part, it pretty much happens magically, quote unquote, if you do the process correctly. And if you go through the process, now, I also ask Beatty, right? Where's Beatty? Where's Beatty right there? She has her model right there. Can we see your envelope right there? Because she's actually using the same technique, but I think you're going off of the screen, right? And she's marking it as she goes, which it's also not a bad idea, right? I mean, that's actually how I always start, right? But anyway, whether you have already an idea of how this, how you would approach that model, which is the envelope one, or whether you're not sure how you would do it, right? I think you'll find methods here that will help you. And still, even if you have already begun such model, I would like you to go through the process, right? Because again, being a Studio One, more than just the end result, I'm really interested in you guys expanding your vision, right, and your kind of mind in the way that you can approach the same problem, right? Because I think personally, I think that's how you become um, sort of, I don't know if good is the right word, but you know, you become efficient once that you experiment with different techniques, and then you can start forming a criteria of when to apply such technique. Of course, time is always of an essence, right? And we don't always have time to go through the right quote unquote way of doing things, right? And again, sometimes we're after that instant gratification, right? That we want to see it now, now, now. But I can tell you, right, a little advice is that if you put in the time to go through the process, it can be painful and it can be time consuming, right? But at the end, you'll have a more you know, a better developed result. I can share that with you, right? I cannot tell you the number of times that I've tried to cut corners, not literally cut corners, but try to do things faster or skip steps just for speed's sakes. But I always end up going back and having to fix my own kind of you know, mess. Right? I'm actually really good at that, right? Wanting to avoid kind of processes and steps and just kind of get it fast and done. And I just realized I just spent twice the time, you know, in doing so. So I can just recommend you, especially again being a Studio One, just be patient with the processes. Because most of the time, well, that's what we do professionally, right? I mean, we kind of have to solve problems before they happen, right? And you know, modeling is a way of testing, right? Things, right? Whether it being digital or physical modeling, so that more as much as possible, right? We can send this, for example, this drawings that I have here in my hand, or this drawings right here. Let's say I could print this, give you each of you guys a copy, and you guys will all end up with the same result, right? Thinking about architects and contractors, right? And how, again, how do we communicate, right? That we're ultimately the ones looking again into all the different kind of possibilities and unforeseen things, right? So it's kind of our job to generate these drawings right here. Of course, this is a paper model or poster board model, but it's along the lines, right? It's along the lines of developing kind of like the sequence of steps, right? Okay, so you're gonna assemble, right? Gerardo's gonna assemble this. Eric drew this, right? Okay, Gerardo, here he goes, right? I mean, you need to graph piece number one, right? Fold here, folder. There's a key, right? There's labels. If you can see, right, we have different lines, right? We have a dotted, we have a dashed, and we have solid lines. Each of those mean different things, right? And I also have the grid, right, which is in a different color. And I have those pieces right there, just kind of remind myself that those are voids, those are openings, and those are not part of the model. Again, since everything is being triangular right now, it's kind of easy as well. Kind of be, is that part of my model, or is that actually like an excess, right? Or is that like a extra part right there? So that's why I color those. So I like to guide you through this right here, and again, you know, so that you can apply. Um, you can apply anything, any of these processes right there for your model right there. Now, I do like to make a note, right, that this process will only work with certain models, right, particularly the ones that follow the grid, right? Because again, part of the lesson of this is to kind of see, right, witness that all parts are connected, right? All of these forms right there, this polyhedron, right? All of the faces, right, can be flattened in this way, right? And all of these ones make this form right there. So I'll take you guys through that. So we should have this models right here, right? The envelope and the structure. Again, the structure, I think those are coming along pretty well. Now let's work with the surface, right? The surface model right there. So hopefully this file is not too big and you'll let me to work with it. Um, work with it. in comfortably. I'm going to make a copy of this model right there. Right now, again, if you start analyzing this model right here, right, and how it can unfold, right, or the right word for that is unroll, right, you have to again kind of reverse engineer this process, right, kind of start thinking of how it's going to look flat. And again, a good point to start is the original tetrahedrons that you guys built, right? So again, if we have stated, right, that dotted line is a ridge, right? That means that we're folding there, and folding there. So this forms a little tetrahedron pyramid, right? And these tabs become a valley, right? So I'll go through it, right? First command that we need to use, right? It's called join edge. Join edge. Now, join edge, right, does exactly that, right? It joins, right? It welds, if you want. It binds, right? One edge with another one, right? In such way that I now select those two, that surface, and it has joined them together, right? They're one single two a component. They are not grouped. Okay, it's different. Again, grouping and joining, it's different, or or they behave differently, right? Uh, so we want to join this surfaces. Now, before I do that, you'll see that I created, right, under the envelope layer, right, which is my green. I created a number of sub layers, right? I guess join 1 and join 2. This is very project oriented. Again, I'm curious to see how this will work with different models. In my case, I only needed 2, and I tested it, right, and it worked with only 2. I don't think it will work with 1. Definitely, I could have 3, 4, or 5, but you also want to have as less as possible, right? You want to have as least pieces floating around as possible. So I guess to answer the question, it's very much project based, and again, it takes a little bit to kind of get it right. It was a back and forth, and I'll show you that. And then at the end, I created this third layer, which is called unrolled. Ultimately, that's the command that we're gonna use, right? It's called unroll surface. Unrolled, which again, sometimes by mistake you might hear me say unfold, but it's actually unroll, rolling it. Unroll surface. So we are unrolling our surfaces. Now, if we actually go to unroll surfaces and see what happens, right now they're all separated, right? That's why we need to join them, right? Because it only allows me to select one. All right. And again, there might be other faster ways of doing this, right? I'm taking you kind of like that through the long road. But again, this is also far so that we can practice Rhino more, right? And again, your guys' skill in terms of 3D modeling and not only 3D modeling, but 3D observation and visualization are improving a lot. You might not be noticing it, but the fact that you're already thinking in the 3 axis, right, and directions, right, and even how one flat surface can turn into 3D, right? You're working out your brain in a pretty really great way. So anyway, so here we go. Let's go through joining the surfaces. Now, this is how I start. I'm gonna select one surface, and I'm actually gonna send it to that first layer, right? The joint 1 layer. And you'll see that automatically changes color. Now, as I go through this, right, the pieces that have become joined are gonna inherit the color of the original piece. That's why I changed the layer so that I can keep track of which ones I have worked with. And I'll show you right now. Right? So I type join edge, right? And I am going to join this triangular edge, this triangular face with this sort of trapezoidal, I can't remember right now the name of that polygon right there, but sort of that diamond right there. Okay, so select two unjoined edges, right? And I click right on the edge, right? Notice that I get my selection menu, right? One is that blue teal, and the other one's the red, the green, right? So the first one that I'm gonna select again is gonna be the if you wanna call it the parent layer, which is gonna be that teal one, which is under the joined one, right? Select that layer right there, and select two unjoined edges, and I click once more in that edge right there. Now this message appears, right? Joining these edges requires a joining tolerance of blah blah blah. Do you want to join these edges? And you say yes, right? And notice how it changes colors. Not only that, if I now click on whichever one of those faces and I move them out, right, they are joined. Now let's actually, as we go, let's test our command unroll. Right? So right now, very simple, right? I'm sure that all of us can picture how this would look once it's unrolled and flat. But let's see it. Let's see it in action. So I'm going to go into my unrolled layer. Right? I'm going to type unroll surface. Select surface or poly surface to unroll. I'm going to select that surface right there. Enter. Right? And it sends it to the origin. Right? I'm going to move it right back here, and right away, immediately, I'm going to turn off its ISO curves, right? Because they also get in the way, right? And it seems like we're missing one part right there. Let's do this one more time. So unroll surface. I see my settings right here. Explode, I'm going to say no. Labels, no. Keep properties, yes. And that would be it. I think it's because explode was on that I think I left behind one of those pieces, but let's see. Now I will select my surface, right? And then enter. Go back to my origin, and there it is. Right? There it is, the two surfaces right there. I'll go ahead and select that one and delete it. All right. Now, something that I haven't really figured out why it does this, you just have to be careful with the orientation, right? What do I mean by this? Let's look at this. Right? So we have this equilateral triangle, right? And we have this, again, four-sided polygon coming off of it. Now, it's coming off of its left side for us, right? If this is the outside, right? If I'm standing right in front of it, that's our left right there. That's where this form should be. Now, if you look at what we've been given, right, it is that. However, we need to flip it, right? We need to flip it like a tortilla, right? I think, right, so I grab that right there. Hold on. All right, there we go. Whoops. Good. Yeah, just mirror it. Yeah, absolutely. You see that? You see that, and again, I rotate it again one more time. Maybe that helps us to see it. Probably it was better to see it like this, right? That again, as you unroll these surfaces, right? Just be sure that it's the right face, right? Because later on, we're gonna add the grid right on this exterior face of it, right? Because remember, each of these polygons, right, has an exterior face, which is what we see on the outside, but also has an interior face, which is what you would see if you were in the inside of this polyhedron, right? So easy, right? I mean, we saw how to join two faces, right? And then unrolling those two surfaces, right, will give us this. Now, if I was to print this, right, I would cut all around it, right? However, I would not cut there, right? I would just fold. You do what's called, you score it, right? You grab you know how an X-Acto knife, right? I mean, you have a bunch of blades. Some of them start going dull. Sometimes it's advisable to keep one or two dull blades so that you can just score, right? Just do a pass. You don't want to cut through it, but you want to score through it, right? So that when you fold it, right? I mean, you have a guide, right? Because again, you can do it without the scoring part, but again, you've probably seen it once you start working on these polyhedrons, right? You start good in one end, but if the tab is really long, or the piece is really long, it kind of goes crooked, right? Or it gets kind of like bumpy, right? So the best thing to do is to score it. Score it with your X-Acto knife. Don't cut through it. Now, there's a difference between scoring in the front and scoring in the back. And again, that all depends if you're going to do a ridge or a valley, right? And I'll go through that in a second, right? So I'll just leave this out here. I'm going to move it to the side, right? Now, let's keep going, right? Now, let's look at this piece right here, this area right here, right? So let's see what happens if I type join edge, right? Enter. I want to join this triangle with now my two joined pieces, okay? So I click on that edge, right? I want to select first the teal, right? The sort of blue-green piece first. And then I click back on that edge right there. And I say yes, right? And it changes colors, right? Okay. I'm going to type unroll surface, right? Enter. Explode, no. Labels, no. Keep properties, yes. Right? That's the poly surface right there. Enter. Right? I'm going to bring it out here. Okay. So, and again, I need to flip it. That work? All right, there we go. All right. So again, all with me, right? Triangle, equilateral triangle, boom, boom. We have that diamond right there, that four-sided polygon right there. And then we have this guy right there, right? This, a smaller equilateral triangle, which is this piece. Now, here, when we were going to assemble this, right? Now we can start seeing, right? And I'm going to do a line, right? Would that line be a ridge or a valley? Huh? I hear ridge and I hear valley. No, just this line right there, that segment right there. From that point to that point. Valley, right? So I can go and set it onto its layer right there. So it's a valley, just so that we can visualize it. Type send backwards, right? And then I can do another line right there from there to there, right? Because you're right, it's half and half. Now, what would this line be? This right there, which is this line right there, this edge. What would that be? A ridge, right? Isamir to sorry, thanks. And there, and I'm gonna send it back. Right now, I have a question for you guys. What would this edge be? A ridge or a valley? Diego, correct. Trick question right there, right? Ridge or valley? It's a cut, right? It's actually a cut. Why is that a cut line? Right? Because it falls to a different direction, right? So if we have a valley right here and we have a ridge right there, that means that this face right there, these two faces are going in opposite directions, right? Right now they're flat like this. One of them is going upwards, the other one's going downwards. So they need to be, if you will, disjointed, right? So you need to cut there, right? So that's why if you look into this PDF right there, you'll see this line right there. That is actually a cut line, right? That again, you might be tempted to just cut all around it, right? But there's actually portions where you have to go in, right? Like these two faces, that's also a cut. And this is the area that we're looking into right now. There's your valley with those dashed lines, and that's your ridge with those dotted lines, and that's your cut line and some tabs that I have added in order to facilitate this assembly. So good, guys. Good so far. Now let's look at this, right? Because from there, right, let's see what happens if I join, right, add to my joined group, joined faces, that face right there, right? So if I type join edge, right, now I'm working with this edge from that point right there to this one, right? So I'm gonna hit there. So again, first my source, second my target, right? Yes, right? So again, for all purposes of the, I guess, modeling way, right, or appearance, they're all one single object, right, because they've been joined. However, I want us to look into what happens, right? Can you guys start visualizing what would happen if we type unroll, right? Is it possible? Let's find out, right? I already hear some no's, right? But yes, right? It shouldn't. But let's see, right? Unroll surface, explode, no. Labels, no. Properties, yes. That's the surface right there, right? Enter, right? Generates surface back here, right? We're bringing it out here. And I'm gonna bring it out here. Now this, guys, is what I want us to be careful with. And again, I'm going to flip this, right? This is what I want us to be careful. The computer did what I asked it to do, right? It unrolled it for me, right? However, once I start cutting this, I'm gonna realize that, uh-oh, this is not right, right? If I make a cut, right? So again, we talked about this is a valley, this is a ridge right here, but again, these addition, right? It's not working, right? You guys see it? Why isn't it working? It's overlap, right? I mean, it's overlap, and unfortunately, I cannot work with that in terms of putting it, assembling this thing by hand, physically, right? So that's what I mean about the logic and sequence of this. It's I'm not gonna lie, for some of us, it's really entertaining because like it's like a little puzzle. Right, so again, yesterday in the afternoon, I was like, all right, let's put this together, right? And I had to do this a number of times. I can show you right here some previous ones that I did that are wrong. I started getting some of those shades right there because again, the inclination is just go crazy joining edges, right? Join edge, pop, 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 join edge, join edge, join edge. You have everything is joined. Right? All right, computer, do your thing, right? Make me work less. Unroll it for me. Boom, it unrolls it for you. And if you did not join the edges with a certain logic in mind, you're gonna see that your unroll surface is gonna be unrolled, but it's not gonna be helping you in terms of putting this thing together. Right, so that's why I had to develop two different layers, right? And some faces are gonna go into different pieces. That is why, again, on these pages that I have printed out right here, we have one major one, three little ones, and one medium size right here. So again, you can start looking at it as a shells, right? Shells that come together. So again, this is not good, right? So I'm going to delete it. Right? Actually, I'll send it right here to the right, and we'll send our not good pieces to the right. Now, if you do that, let's say that you join an edge and you want to disjoint it. Let me see if I remember this correctly. The way that we do that should be with extract surface. There we go. Extract surface, right? Select surface to extract would be that one right there. Right click. You see that now has been, say, broken that way from the join edges. And I'm gonna send it back to its envelope layer. Whoops, not all of them. This one right there. So that we can keep thinking about this. So again, so far so good. I mean, those make sense right there. And again, you can keep going pretty fast once you start just mindful, right? Just mindful of what you can do and what you cannot. And it's kind of also how many fit in one page right there. But let's continue. Right. So if I already decided or already witnessed or already realized that that piece right there, right? And again, notice that it's not fully a triangle. Notice that I'm actually capping the top piece because there's another tetrahedron coming off of it, right? The piece looks like a trapezoid. I'm already going to send it to the other layer, right? The joint number 2, because I know it cannot be from this one right there. So I'll send it to its other layer from there. All right. So from there, we can continue. All right. Let's say that I'm going to my right. All right. What do you guys think? Would it work if I want to join these two edges? Hmm? Yes. Yeah, I see. I hear yes. I see. All right. I think it should work. All right. Join edge right there. Again, we do that one right there is the source first, and then the target. Right. Yes. Okay. Again, they look joined. Right. Let's see what happens if I type unroll surface, right? Enter, right? Enter. It goes all the way over there, right? Bring it out here, down here. Again, it seems that it's being flipped, so right, do that right there, and it does work, right? I don't know that glitch right there, where is that coming from? But again, let's do an inventory right here, right? So this is the phase that we started with, which is this one right here, right? We have our, what would that be, a 3 or 5-sided equilateral triangle coming there. We say we have a cut line right there, and we have that 4-sided polygon. Then we turn around and we have, again, 2 equilateral triangles that are the same size, right? But then here's this line right there. What would this line be? A ridge or a valley? A ridge, right? Because it's going to be this crease right here, that edge that is folding, right? So what do you say, guys? Where would you go next, right? I mean, from there, you can see that actually it would work if you add that face and these 2 faces, right? So you can type join edge, right? So I can do join the major edge right there, which is the source, and then we can join this one right there, right? And then I can right click, and I can then select this edge again, right? Source, and then target right there, right? Because you can even see right here, there's sort of a visual kind of illusion, right? If I rotate this enough or in a certain way, you can see how this piece will fit exactly in between these 2 flattened polygons, right? So let's see, what do you mean? It is. I want to say that it is, but I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly. Yeah. Correct. Yeah, correct. And I mean, again, this is where logic and kind of I don't know, some of you guys are even better at this, right? And some of us kind of why, but some of us can see it immediately, right? Okay, that one should be joined with that one, that one, and definitely I think the way that I'm going about it right now, it might not be the most efficient one, right? But because again, I think you guys are right. The same way that I went this way that I here, I think I could have gone up, right, and kind of unfolding some of the other ones. Um, Ultimately, it doesn't matter. What matters though is that when you type again unroll surface, right, and we hit that OK, enter, that again, whatever your result is, you don't have overlapping edges. But again, it just takes, or it just requires, right, patience, and again, some sort of well, trying to do a rotate right there, so I want to do 180. My number pad has been possessed. Thank you Spotify, but not right now. Double click on that right now. I gain control back of my numbers right there, so enter. Because again, you have the gumball right there. I don't know if you know, right? But if you have the gumball, you can actually click on the arrows or the rotations, and you can actually enter a number, right? Let's say I want to move this 90 up. See, just disappeared. So I did a rotation, right? 180 degrees. I'm gonna rotate it again, and I'm gonna rotate it again. Okay. So yes, absolutely, right? However, you're gonna see that I'm start getting into a tricky point right here, that whatever I have on this to the left of this face right there, which is this guy right there, let's say that I wanted to add a face to this joint right there, that's actually gonna be growing on this surface right there, and that's not good. I can add the one to its right because I have some room right there, right? So I can actually add this piece right there. So I can type join edge, right, from there to that right there. Actually, can I? Actually, I cannot. I cannot, right? Because it's gonna grow on that one right there, right? So, yeah, it's good. You guys are getting the. I think it was this one right here. This is the one that we're working with right now. So, absolutely, right? You guys are right. I cannot, right? And you actually can see it right here that if there's gonna be a cut right there, right, that divides that face with that face, well, where is this coming from? Right, where is that guy actually coming from? So what was the command if I join them and I actually want to undo that unjoin of the edge? Extract surface. Right, enter. Right, so that's the surface that I want to extract. Enter. Notice that it's now its own object, and I'm gonna send it back to the envelope layer. And I think right there and then, we actually realized that that's part of the other form right there, the same way as this one right here, because it cannot grow that way. Right? So we can add it into the other layer right there. But however, we can start seeing right that these are now part of the same piece now, right? And good, right? So then from there, right, you can start seeing that this face, for example, it must go right under this layer right there. So I won't force it. I'm just going to join it, right? Join edge, right? So again, source first is that darker teal. Oops. Join edge. Select that right there. Click there one more time. Okay. All right, and I start getting this form right there. Right, that again, I click unroll surface, rotate my view so that I can catch it right here, enter, that comes out, and bring it downward right here, right, have that right there, and right, I guess I forgot to join the edges, so that's what I forced the layer color, but I didn't join them, right, so again, I should do join edge, right there, so then there's that right there, and then with that one, I think we're missing that one as well. Right, so right click to repeat last action, join that edge with that one right there. I'm going to delete that one, right? Unroll surface, right? Enter. And this is the second piece that I obtained. Now, like I said, it is a puzzle. It is sort of a game, and I guess the name of the game, right, is what's the least amount of pieces that I can get? Because again, right, if you really think about this, right, I mean, you can do this the really, really long way, and you can actually cut each of these faces individually, kind of like you've been doing with your surfaces, right? And you can just glue them individually, right? You don't have to have the folds. It just takes way more time and it's more gluing, right? Because once you can fold it, well, you can just fold it and you don't need tabs anymore, right? So again, you can actually go just, I mean, and you can just cut each of these pieces individually, right? Maybe that's what some of us were doing, right? That's where we started. That's one way of doing that, right? But I think that would be of a longer process. Again, this seems that it takes longer, and perhaps it does, right? I mean, it does taking time to actually figure this out. Once you figure it out, I mean, again, you just edit the lines and you can export this, and the folding piece or the assembly piece is just piece of cake, right? So again, we have that piece right there, right? That little void. It's where this little tetrahedron would sit, right? So we have that piece right there, right? It's being connected to these two triangles, which are these two right there, and a larger one somewhere over here, right? Which is again that truncated trapezoid or a triangle, which becomes a trapezoid, right? So again, let's look at this piece right there. Right? That's the trapezoid, right? That would be this trapezoid right there. You have this ridge, which will be this piece right here. And then from there you have a valley or ridge. Valley, right? And then last you have the ridge, right? The ridge. Um, Now, again, it's a sort of a process, but again, I want you guys to kind of play an experiment with the unroll, and I guess we can do a quick, YouTube on this, right? But if you type unroll surface rhinoceros, it's a really powerful command, especially once you start getting into more complex forms and shapes, right? And you're welcome to do some of this research right here, right? This is a really effective way, right, of modeling all those, let's say, organic and sometimes kind of a little wild forms that you guys end up with your designs, right? So right now we're working with sort of basic forms right there, and that's why sort of lose and this is a very similar process of what we're doing, right? Unrolling and then mapping some sort of a texture or surface onto the skin of this, right? But anyway, sort of a very, very useful command that again, it may not be the most efficient way of doing what we're doing right now, but it's a good way of getting familiarized with this command, which again, it really helps us put models together, which again, hopefully you're realizing that it's a cycle. I mean, you do something by hand, you put it on the computer, right? And then you bring it back out of the computer, right? You assemble it and then you put it back on the computer, right? And it's a back and forth deal. And you have this another video of this friend, this girl talking about how to even unfold or unroll. Sorry, this spheres, right? I mean, a lot of times, even for history, right, you end up with some domes, and that's one of the first questions. Like, how do I do the dome, right? I mean, well, go get some styrofoam and kind of chop it in half, and that's what you end up with. But again, once you start working with polygonal meshes, right, you can start breaking it down in segments, right, and again, you can unroll these, right, all of this, and end up with again at the end what looks like a dome, right? So again, it's really powerful, right? And then again, that's an unrolled of one of these guys right there. Again, it goes further than that. It has more than that, right? Because what she's talking about is that again, kind of like what we're doing right now, you cannot just type unroll and expect it to be magical. Again, the computer doesn't really think; it processes, right? So there's some human intervention that needs to go beforehand so that you help the computer give you the best result possible. So I'm gonna go ahead and pause this. So the idea, right, is that as you unroll your surfaces, right, now the beauty of this is if I copy, right, my tri-grid, right, and again, if we have been using the grid, type move, and type bring it there, and type rotate from there to there, right? And I go to top view and say move this, move that, and move it. You see how all the pieces fit nicely within the grid, and you don't see the joints right now of the teal right now. But if you highlight it, you see that all of those fall exactly on a line of the grid, as it should. And again, you can do this exercise manually, right? Kind of like looking at your 3D model on the screen and having one of these kind of grids on your desk and kind of like more or less draw it, which I think is what maybe some of us were doing, right? Kind of seeing it, how it would behave. But again, this is I guess, a more advanced way or a little bit more pro way of doing it. Now, let's say that you're, let's see, do I have, do I have? Oh, here we go. Right. So this is what I end up with. Again, I'm not really sure if this is the best way of I guess the least number of pieces that I would have been able to get out of this. But I just decided to call it. Now, before exporting this, I went ahead and draw my lines, right? So again, I have two layers right here of a ridge and a valley, right? So that again, I know, right, that's a ridge, right, because it's a pink layer, and a valley because it's a blue, and anywhere else, right, especially that line right there and all around it, that is a cut, right? Once I did that, right, I went ahead and copied this, right, control copy, and also I went ahead and set up a file, right, separately, right, with the grid. I have this grid right here. Now this grid, it's already to the scale of the 1/4. What do I mean by that? That I'm gonna hit paste, and you can see how huge and enormous my pieces are. Right, so I'm gonna type move. Right, because again, these pieces should be way smaller. Now, again, working back and forth between scales. Right, you guys remember that you guys had your little model, which was a 22 inches by 22 by 22. And then we typed scale, right, so that it grows to the real size. You guys remember what factor did we scale it by? 48, right? So you guys know how can I scale it back down to the scale size? Correct. Right, that's the inverse of that, right? So I can type scale, right? Again, the origin point, right, and say that corner. Now, rather than doing 48, I can do 1/48, which is that fraction, right, as the opposite of that, right? And brings it down now smaller, right? Now, why did I do this, right? Well, because I have here a 24 by 36 sheet, and I have here an 11 by 17 sheet, right, with the grid, right, drawn on it as such, right? Now, my question is, okay, so I'm going to copy one of these sheets right here, right, bring it down. I'm going to group it. I select group, enter, right? If I type move, right, I can start seeing how this sort of sits there. Right? It kind of starts fitting there, and even better, I can type move, right, and position it on the polygon exactly how it fits. Now, I would probably want to avoid this, right, sending my polygon and my object all the way to the edge, right? So let's see if it works. If I can maybe grab this corner right there and bring it there. Good. Now I would probably maybe move it one more so that again, the idea is that you have some flexibility, right, and some breathing room like that. Right? I mean, I have all of that open, all of that open, all of that open, and you can see how this piece now fits exactly on an 11 by 17, which is what I have here, right, or similar to what I have here. And you actually even see that, and maybe I can even bring it up here on the projector, right, which is this piece. I even have some room in this case to my right, but now I can work maybe here on the left to add maybe these smaller pieces. All right, so I can type move, select that object right there. Maybe I can bring it right there, right? Which be careful with that, right? Because it's not really laying on the grid, so that's not really helping us. So I'll move it right there. I'll select this one as well, right? And then move it, say there, right? And again, at any point you're not seeing what you want to see, right? Like for example, I lost my ridge lines right there. If you right click under a layer and you go to select all, oops, sorry. If you right click under a layer and you select on select objects, click on select objects, it selects all of the objects that are on that layer. And if you type the command bring forward, sort of like in PowerPoint that it has sent to back, bring to front, I click on bring forward, right? It brings those lines back forwards or from forward to me so that I can see them, right? So I can see them better and kind of keep track of what I'm doing. Now, you'll see as well that I created a new layer, right? What is this layer called? Cut, right? So you can tell that what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a polyline, enter, and I'm going to go trace right back through this, right? And you do want to do this cut layer, right? Why? Because it starts getting kind of messy really quickly. For example, right here, I should actually cut there. I know because, and this exercise really asks that you get very familiar with your model, that you know almost how many faces you have in total, what's the size of them, what's the shape, and what edges are connecting with which one. So again, I'm familiar with my model, and I'm like, I know that, and even just by looking at it, right, I know that actually I need a cut line right there. Even though they're sharing that edge right there, I need to cut through them, right? So I right click to exit, right? And again, that line disappear. I can right click and cut, select objects, right? Bring forward so that I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to type polyline one more time. Again, I can start from there. I start going around and around there. Right now, I know I need to cut in here. Right, so I'm gonna kind of go around it like that. Right, do that and that. Cut there. Now this one, right, I can bring it all the way over here, right? Because I'm cutting all the way over there. Bring it there. Type C, enter. Actually, I started on the wrong place. No. All right, one more time. That has started on the same place. Do that right there. And again, this is based on your model, right? So again, you may think, why is he doing that, or why is he going one direction or the other one? And actually here, right? Actually, I was doing it wrong. I was bringing it there, and I was bringing it here. But actually, I need to actually cut there. Right? So I'm gonna end my polyline right there. Again, it disappeared. Right click, select objects, bring forward, so I can see what I'm doing right there. And one more polyline, so we can cut there and there. Right click, select objects, bring forward, and we have that. So again, be very careful and mindful about this areas right there, that again, it might not be quite evident right away that there's actually a cut there. These ones, well, they're just little tetrahedrons without a bottom portion, so I can go polyline, right? And I do that. Here I can type C for closing, right? And again, I can become smart, and I don't have to draw it again. I can type copy, right? Bring it there. Select my cut objects. Select objects. Bring forward. Now, yesterday I was like, okay, I'm done, right? I'm gonna bring it to, and careful with that as well, right? See that point, this point, right? I'm gonna type move. Should actually be right there, right? There you go. And again, yesterday I was all great, happy, let's get it out. And then I realized as I generated my Illustrator file that I'm missing something that, well, if I'm doing this, might as well add them, which are what? My tabs, right? And I'm like, man, I have to go back. And I did. And I did go back, and I'll show you guys how to do those. Okay? So this is the version without tabs, and just by putting this very bad quality model together, I can tell that tabs are the way to go. All right, definitely. And again, here Diego, he's actually using even the height of one of the rows of units. But you'll see that how here, for example, in a smaller unit, Diego had to create a smaller tab, right? Because using this bigger tabs, well, it's the same face, it's the same size as the face. Right? So let me show you how we can do. And again, this is all like work that is like, man, but you don't feel like you're producing, but trust me, just putting the time into it, just printing, and the assembly is like, poop. Well, I mean, yeah, better material, better glue than what I have right there. But I put that together in, a matter of minutes, right? I mean, 30 minutes, I was able to cut it and assemble it. Let me show you how to add the tabs. And we do that in Illustrator, in Rhino, in this file that we have right here. And it's just a matter of offsetting Okay, well, and it's also a matter of looking again, kind of like analyzing how these pieces are joining, right? It does require again some sort of analysis, right? But let's see. Let's start with a simple one, right? This guy's right there. So I can type offset, right? And I'm doing an offset distance, right? I click on distance of 0.25, which is a quarter of an inch, right? Enter. Select the curve that I want to offset, right? The direction, right? Inwards, that's not the right direction. Outwards, it's the right direction, right? Now, let me show you this piece in the model, right? That piece right there. And actually, let me borrow this model. Bring it right there. Bring it right there. Zoom, select it, viewports. Let me show you this piece right there, right? So these two little pieces right there, those are these two tetrahedrons right here. That one and that one. Now, there is some thinking about this, right? There's actually some thinking in terms of where the tabs go, right? Because, again, we know that they share this point, right? Again, if you visualize this guy, again, I have 1, 2, 3 faces, right? They actually need to meet in this edge, right? So one tab goes there. I just use a line, right? I'm on the cut layer as well, right? So I type line and I do that and I do that, right? I need that tab in order for it to close like that. Now, I also need to attach it to its bottom portion right there, right? So that would be, right? And that's where the question is like, well, which ones is it, right? So again, you have to again familiarize with your model, right? That's the only thing that I can say. Let me bring these lines forward so we can see them better, right? Bring forward, enter, right? I'm gonna start, right? And I can add another line, right? I'll bring this line right there, right? Then I'll bring another line right there, 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 and that's it, right? Because I don't need this piece right here, but let me show you right now. So I'll type trim, so I'll select these two objects, right? I want to get rid of that, right? Right click to repeat trim, right? Enter, I want to get rid of that, right? Right click to repeat enter, right? And I want to get rid of that, but this one's not right, right? That line should actually be here, right? So we can cut there, and I can type trim one more time, right? Enter, delete that. That line goes away. And then here, I do not need a tab right there, right? Because that's going, this edge should meet this other one once I create a ridge and a ridge fold right there. Okay, so I'll type trim, select that object, this object, enter, and I have that. And again, just so that we can see them better, select objects, forward, and I have that. All right. Now, these right here are going to become now valleys. These are not going to be valleys rather than being cut lines. Okay. So you're gonna be careful with those. And again, if you don't get it right first time, you've printed it and you start putting it together and you realize like, oh man, this is not looking right. That's fine. I mean, remember these are all study models. But I do like to start training kind of our brain in that way. Right? So for example, I created that line right there. That actually should not be a cut line. That is actually a valley, right? And that is actually another valley right there, right? Because the tabs are also valley or ridges, right? The tabs also go either inwards or outwards, right? Depending on how the forms work. So what do I mean? Right? You look at Diego's model right here, right? This tab, right, is a ridge, right? This tab right there. However, this tab could also go like this if he had another piece coming out of this, which then becomes a valley now, right? In this model particularly, right? So tabs also have a direction, right? based on how they fold, and you can actually see it on this PDF that I have created right here, because that's a tab right there. However, this is a valley tab. Now that's another tab right there. Now that's a ridge tab right there. So again, you're doing all this thinking, all this processing prior to assembling your model, right? But with the idea or with the notion that hopefully the thinking process is for the most part over once you start the assembly process, right? So we can start adding that. I can send that one back, right? Send backward, right? So that I can actually bring forward my lines right there. Bring forward, right? There we go, right? So we do that exercise, right? And at all points you have to question, okay, what's going on there? Well, actually that's where one of these little tetrahedron notches there, right? And again, this other large one notches there, right? So again, at some point we have to start thinking about this portion right there meets with this one at this point right here. So does that mean that I then create a tab, right? So that I join these two portions, right? This is not only a matter of joining each piece with itself, but also this piece, right? The larger one notches at some point with this portion right here. And that's what this tab is for. That tab right there matches one of these triangles, the edges right there, right? And again, that's how you start connecting them all around. Now, again, at some point, once you start printing and you get this out, you might realize that you're missing some. That's okay. Just try to learn at least the logic behind it, all right? And I really can tell you that you will learn a lot from this, right? A lot from this exercise. Anyway, once you have successfully, right, bring this model to it's flat unrolled mode, right? And again, you'll see that did I create a new layer? Yes, I created a layer, right, called tabs, right? All of those lines, and you'll see why in a minute. The use of layers is really important, right? Really important when we bring it to Illustrator, right? Because that's how we select the lines and that's how we change the way that they look. Dash, dot, solid, etc. Right? So let me take you guys through how to export them, right? Export these guys right here. So the way that we export them, right, and you should be able to do it in Illustrator. I had a hard time doing it. I don't know why, but then I realized that you can do it in CAD and it's actually faster. I mean, it works fine. You don't actually open it in CAD. You just export it as an AutoCAD file, and Illustrator can read CAD files, right? So let me take you through that. So you'll see that I'm going to have two files, right? Assembly 1 and Assembly 2, and that just means sheets, right? Sheets. So Assembly 1, Assembly 2. You guys ready? So type export, select the object, right, to export, enter. Now this is where we want to change the format, right? Rather than being a Rhino 6, I'm going to send this to an AutoCAD file, which is what you will here referred to as a DWG, right? DWG. That's those files are AutoCAD files, right? DWG, which stands for drawing, right? Drawing in some way, and that's kind of like how you can abbreviate drawings sometimes, but at least that file format, that's an AutoCAD file, right? Anytime that you see a file and you see DWG at the end, that's an AutoCAD. The same way that you see a 3DM at the end, that's a Rhino file, right? So anyway, I'll select, and notice that you can do an Illustrator, but I had a hard time with the scale. So I won't do it in Illustrator. I'm actually going to do it in AutoCAD. So I'll select that format right there. Again, I called it assembly 1. Right, and I'll call this right here at the end AM, just so that I already have a file that name there on my desktop. So I hit save. This box comes up. Everything I just leave as is, and I hit OK. Right, nothing happens except that now on my desktop I have a file. Right, let's load the other one since we're here. Right, I'm gonna right click, select objects to export. Right, those objects right there. Right click. These are now assembly 2 underscore em, and I hit save. Okay, and we have that. All right. Now we can go to Illustrator. I can go to File, Open, and notice that it reads your AutoCAD files, right? So that was the one, assembly one. So I'm going to hit Open. This window appears. Now it's very important that we keep original size. Okay. Do not scale to fit artboard and do not scale by any percentage. Right. It's the same story whenever we print this, guys. Right. Whenever we go to the ISC, it's very important that whenever you're gonna get these PDFs into print version, right, you ask them to please do not scale them up or down, because again, it's a very little tolerance, right? It's very little, but it will mess with your, and I think we already saw it in some surfaces that doesn't, you have an extra little room right there from the grid. That's also where it can come from, right? That this gets shrinked up by a little bit. So original size, I hit OK. All right. So that's what we get, raw, RAW, right? That's the raw file that we get out of Rhino, exported as a DWG, open into an Illustrator file. Now, the first thing that I need to fix is my artboard, right? Document setup, edit artboard, right? The width is 17, right, by 11, right? Enter. Notice that automatically fits perfectly, right? I hit my letter V as in Victor to get my selection tool, right? My selection tool, V. Now, this is where, ladies and gentlemen, right, our layers become critical. If I expand my layers menu, right, I have all those layers that I had created, right? Now, we can start, let's actually merge first the other one so that we have them both together on the same file, like I have here, and that we have them in tandem side by side so that we don't have to repeat the steps times. Okay? So I go to a file, open. Now I have my assembly 2, right? And I hit open. And actually, I'm gonna hit cancel because that's the wrong one. I wanna hit open and assembly 2 AM. Where are you? Assembly 2 AM. Hit open. Original size, okay. Now in this case, I don't need to fix the page because I'm actually going to copy paste all those layers right there into this one. So it's under assembly 1 DWG. I'm going to do a file, save as, and I'm going to turn it out into an Illustrator file, right? And I'm just going to call this assembly print. Yeah. Right, and I save this right there. Save. Okay. Because again, remember that we opened a CAD file, so it was still being read as a DWG, and I had just converted it now into an Illustrator file. I can go to Document Setup, Edit Artboards. I'm going to hold Alt, left click, and drag to my left, or right, I'm sorry. Release. Press V as in Victor to escape from there. I'm going to select the artwork on this artboard. Delete. I'm going to bring now artwork from this other board, right? Control copy, right? Control paste, right? In this message right there, let's go ahead and click merge swatches and apply to all, right? Because we're sharing the same layer names, right? Because they were created in the same file, and that's kind of like what it's asking us. So I'll click OK, right? And we can just, since we have a border and an edge right there, I can just position this right there, and I get closer, align it there, and align it there. Control 0 to zoom extents, right? And you're seeing that we now have two boards in tandem. Now the last thing that we need to do is work on the line types and the line weights, right? Which is whether is it solid, is it a dash, or is it a dot, right? And again, I already have those names right here, right? Cut, taps, valley, and reaches, right? So the first thing that I'll do is the cut. Now remember, if I click on this little donut right there, it selects everything that it's on that layer. All right, so first thing that I do is I want those lines to be black now. So I double click on its stroke color and I send that to black and I hit OK. No, and I have that. Now the second thing is that I want to take a look into its thickness. So I'm going to select it one more time, and I see that it's a 0.709. These ones that I have printed and the ones that I have generated before, I think I used a 1 for everything, and they came out good enough. So I'm actually going to force that, right, from 0.709, double click there and write 1, and then enter. And you see how they become a little bit thicker, easier to read. A little bit easier to read right there. Good. So you have those lines right there. Now let's look at your tabs, right? Your tabs layer right there. I'll select all of those together. No, I'm sorry, not your tabs, your valleys and ridges. So I'll select all of your valleys, right, which are all of those lines right there. And I need to think. In this case, right, on the previous file, I decided that my valleys will be dash, and I actually even changed the name so that I can actually easily remember which one is which. So valleys become dash and ridges becomes dot. Right, so I'll do that since I guess I'm realizing that that actually helped. So double click on the name. So valley becomes a dash and ridges becomes a dot. All right. So I have now selected all my dashes again with that donut right there. I go into the stroke thickness, make sure that again it's a 1, and then you hit on stroke, right, dash line, and so that we can actually do this faster, let me give you just what I use right here since it seems to have worked fine. I use a dash line of 14 points, right? So I'm gonna go here, back to my file, right? And again, we change the stroke to a dash, 14, and you see we have that right there. Right? Now they're still blue. Right? So again, I select them all together. We'll click on its stroke color, right? And bring them to black. Right? Oops, I did valleys. Oh yeah, that should be right. Should be there. Click there. Okay. Let's do this. Do that. And then delete this right there. And let's do the stroke one more time. Dash 14. There we go. Right. So again, now we know that again that's a valley right there. Those are all cut lines. And then lastly, right, we have that our ridges, ridges right there. Those should be again a 1, and its line type. Let me share that with you guys. It's a 4 dash and a 5 gap. That's the little dot lines right there. 4 dash 5 gap. So I go back to the file that I'm setting up. Stroke dash line, and it's a 4 and a 5. It actually remembers it from the last one right there. And lastly, I'll just let's see if now it kind of works because it was giving me a hard time. Let's see if I select it from there, a black, and ta-da. So you'll see that the tabs again, kind of like the problem that Diego encountered right there, that some tabs need to be smaller than other ones. I think the 1/4 of an inch tab is enough that it'll let you even assemble those little pieces right there. Something else that I did, I don't know if I created its own layer. Let me see if I did. I created this layer called void. Again, that was for me to graphically distinguish, right, these pieces or these areas that those are just void. Nothing goes there. And it can get a little bit confusing once you print it out. It's like, is that a surface? Am I folding that? Did I make an error when I was enrolling? Right? The fact is that actually nothing goes in there, right? So we can do this, right, with our pen tool. So again, we create a new layer, right? And I call it void, right? However, you need to lock all the other layers, because we're gonna use the pen tool. So I'm not on that layer. I type P for pen. If your cursor looks like that, because you have caps on. So if you turn them off, it goes into a pen It looks like a pen. So we click on that anchor, click on that anchor, click on that anchor right there, and go back to the origin. And I think I made an error right there. There we go. Anchor, and then origin right there. Nothing happens. Right? It's like nothing happened. However, if I flip this to right here, right, that goes into a black. That's too much. Slight gray will do, and that's that. Right? P for pen, and again, it works better if we zoom in here. And again, I'm not looking at my screen. I'm looking at the big old screen in front of me, and it's a little bit harder for me to kind of visualize it there. There we go. And then we have that right there. Right? So we have now created here this one. Well, there's no void. There's no void. Ready? No, you don't have to. I mean, you definitely don't have to. And again, this is all one of the things that I'm speaking with or I'm talking and I'm referencing an average piece, right? I mean, I think like a lot of projects might have something similar. I mean, it's very similar to what Diego has here, right? And again, I'll go ahead and pass both of them. There's just a lot of surprises, and that's what makes this project so unique and special. That again, some of the techniques that I'm talking about, it might cover about 50%, 70%, 80% of your model, but you might have that one piece that requires a different approach and a different analysis, and like, you know what, this one's actually trickier or different, right? Um, so again, definitely, and the idea here in general, guys, is that we're sharing with you tools. We're sharing with you tools and methods. However, there are recipes in terms of how to achieve an objective, but there's also sort of a personal strategy, right? And I guess it's kind of like cooking, right? Again, we all have our different ways of cooking, right? I mean, what goes first and what goes then, even if the recipe calls for something different, right? So again, this is where the best advice that I could give is just learn as many tools and techniques as possible, learn how they work and learn what they do. However, the real test is how you use them, right? You see people cutting out there on the benches around the sauce and everything. Again, you might see someone more seasoned and experienced is like, why are you doing that? You could actually get a jig, right? You actually cut here, cut that, right? That's what that's what practice and experience is, right? So I'm showing you guys some way, some method, right? But again, you might find your own, right? And it's like, you know what? It worked for his model or on that model that he was talking about, but mine, I'm gonna have to go about it differently. But the tools and methods are gonna be very similar. However, it cannot be the same recipe for all of these projects together. So we have created this file right here. Now, I created this file right here just to show you with or without tabs. Definitely, if you're gonna go, since we're going through this exercise, let's add the tabs. It would just be silly to do it without the tabs. Uh, that's why, I mean, again, I was ready to continue with my day and just ready for tomorrow. But then I realized, man, I have to go back and add those tabs. Right? So I did. In your case, you don't have to create both. You just have, again, you might have one or two sheets or three or four. I don't know. It's just, again, very diverse and very diverse, the number of projects that we have here. So the last part, again, let's just do one last save, right? File save. Again, we're now under Illustrator format. So good. This will be an Illustrator file. The last thing that we do is a file, save as, PDF, right? PDF, assembly print. You can leave the same name. It won't override it since it's a different file format. I hit save. It's always just by default. I just go ahead and click that, optimize for fast web viewing. Nothing crazy in this time, but I always like to check it, right? Hit save PDF, and you take this to print, and see, like there's something funky going on there. Let me see what's going on there. Seems like I had, I don't know, like multiple lines right there. Right, so that's something that I did not realize, but it's okay. In this case, and I can show you right here what I mean by that. Right, those pinks, right? We had 2 lines of those. Not sure why, and they are locked. So I'll lock them. What layer is that? Apparently, it's a different layer. Let me find out. That is under rich. Okay. So I don't know why there's two lines overlapping right there. And that one's the correct one. The pink one is not. And so I would just try to clean that up. Right. So let's see. They're in an envelope. Ah, you're right. Yeah. So okay. So just be careful with your layers right there. Because actually, those should be under rich right there. Actually, I'll do this. I'm going to delete envelope because I don't need that one. And there we go. Values are there. All right. I'm gonna close the PDF that I created right now, and I'm gonna save it one more time. File, save as, PDF, save, replace it, yes, optimize, save PDF, and we have it. And right, I mean, if you think about it, even someone that has never touched this project before, seen it before, can potentially, right, even help you, right? It's like, all right, friend, brother, sister, significant other, right? The name of the game is assemble this for me. Not that you want to. I mean, again, as architects or designers, we're always obsessed with it being right. And if you want something right, might as well do it yourself. But technically, the idea is that you can actually generate a document or a file that anyone can jump on, and it's like, here are the rules. Dot means rich, dash means valley, solid means cut, tabs, go. Of course, you need the 3D model to kind of rotate and know which pieces go where, right? So anyway, again, a lot of you guys have already started these, or if not, already start thinking about how to do this. There is this method that, again, let's go through it, right? Generate the file. It's a good practice on Rhino. It's a good practice of Illustrator, and it's a good practice of both of them, working with them together, right? Because we're gonna keep doing that. So I'm going to stop. Right? Any questions? Technical questions, perhaps, either in Illustrator or Rhino, perhaps for the record right here that maybe can help everyone. Hmm. That is, it would be just one of these ones, right? Because you just have like tetrahedrons, right? Yeah, yeah. And again, some of you guys have it easier, right, or a little bit more straightforward than other ones. Some of us like the challenges and have kind of a mess in there. But yes, correct. So no, let's not include the that's thank you for the question. You see, on this one right here that I have, I am not including the bottom piece anymore. Right. The idea is that we can actually look through it, right, and at some point even open some of these ones, right? Because this is now gonna sit on the ground, and what are we gonna see? Huh? Their surfaces, right? The surfaces on the base, right? Because this is not going to be on the base, and we're going to see the surfaces underneath it, right? So again, if I poke a hole in here, I'm going to be able to see your surfaces and how the 3D envelope interacts with your flat surfaces on your base. Good question. Yes. Good. It's lunchtime. My stomach. Yeah. Right. Okay. So I'm gonna stop this.